class ideas that you've shown us tonight. We're going to go through the next break because we took the break a little earlier. So I'm introducing our next presenter for tonight, who is Julia Clemente. She's an ELICOS teacher at Times Academy in Sydney, and she's going to be talking about how to keep lower level students engaged in an online environment.
Hi everyone, how are you?
Hey Julia, nice to see you. If you can share your screen now.
Sure. Nice to see you here, to be here. Yeah, so thank you, Sophie. I'd like to talk about how to keep lower level students engaged, because when we went online, I was teaching the pre-intermediate level, and I quickly realized that the online environment had a lot great potential, but also posed some issues. So the first one was the lack of nonverbal cues that we would have, of course, in class. And also my expectations in regard to students turning their cameras on and reality, because many of my students wouldn't turn their cameras on for personal reasons, which I completely respect, but that added an extra layer of complexity because I didn't even have face expression anymore. And as was mentioned before, another obstacle was the different devices they were using and their different IT skills, which when it gets paired up to a quite low level of English can become quite problematic. So tonight what I'm sharing with you is how I managed to prepare engaging lessons without overcomplicating things, having my students to learn more IT in a moment where they were already challenged by many different things. So in my experience, my teaching experience, I saw that engaging lessons are about the interests, being relevant to the interests of the students, but also to also giving them knowledge that they feel they can use in their daily life in an English-speaking country. And this means cultural reflection. So we know that communicative competence is not only about language, but it's also about extra-linguistic competence. And for this reason, I wanted to find a way to create a lesson which would engage them and include all these aspects and make them reflect on these different aspects. In the past, and while thinking about this, I saw that using videos simply taken from YouTube, so it would be something very easy for them to access and to use, because it's something they usually know how to use already. In the past, I had already used videos for my classes, but mainly as a supplementary material to integrate our course book. And probably I didn't take full advantage of their teaching potential. So what I did, so what I will show you is how I use video clips to maximize communicative competence. First of all, I would choose a video that, of course, is relevant for the syllabus, adequate for the level, and interesting for the students. For example, I was teaching print, and we had to do countable and uncountable nouns, which we usually pair with the topic of food. And I chose Joy Doesn't Share Food from Friends, which not only gave me the opportunity to present the grammar point in an inductive way, but it also allowed me to talk about dating, which is something that usually students are really interested in. And first of all, I will make a presentation. Now, since most of my students will follow from their smartphones, I had to keep things very, very simple. And I always try to put everything together in a PowerPoint so they could easily follow just one file rather than having to go around different things. Because of time constraint, I would just cover what the video activity was about with you. So before class, I would prepare a presentation with vocabulary analysis if there was the need to clarify some terms before the listening activity. Sometimes also with pictures to suit different learning styles. Then an outline of the scene, the character's name, and their role. And these I found needs to be very clear and very specific, because sometimes I realized we're very familiar with, in this case, this TV show, but maybe for our students it's the first time they see it, and it's really easy to get confused about who is whom. And I would also prepare a transcript because many of them would feel reassured if they could have the transcript at the end of class. So I'm sure I'm not the only one whose students sometimes stress that they want to understand every single word. Now we know that it's not always ideal, but we also need to being caring about their needs. And I found this would be a good way to do that. So before watching, during class, I would introduce the topic and the source, and ask the students if they're familiar with it. Now, sometimes some students were and some weren't, and I used breakout rooms for clarification. Like mentioned before, I also noticed that in online teaching, they feel more on the spot when they have to speak. So putting them in breakout rooms in smaller groups made them feel less shy and more willing to share. So for them, it was also another opportunity for some speaking practice. And so the ones who knew the show, the actors, could explain it, outline it for the others. And then once done this, we would have a cultural reflection. So in this case, I'm using the example of a date, but we did also, job interview. There's many other situations that can be analyzed. So what happens during a date in Australia and in their own countries? What is the protocol about body language, physical contact, eye contact, who picks up whom, who pays? And I would ask them to share what happens in their own country in this situation, because I really wanted them to focus first on the extra-linguistic part of communication, because we know that a lot of body language is shared, but not necessarily it's the same in all countries. And it's something we need to be aware of, because if we want to achieve our purposes through communication, if we make a cultural faux pas, we can speak the language perfectly, but we're going to be excluded immediately. So we would have a cultural reflection on, in this case, the date. And we would then proceed to the first watch, and I will watch the video without sound. Now, this is a thing I started doing online. So I will share my screen with the classroom and ask the students to pay attention to body language, space management, eye contact, physical contact among the speakers. So for them only to focus on this part of the communication. And after that, we would discuss, you know, even if some of them already knew what was going on, but which of these clues you notice tell you the relationship among the actors? And in case of a date, from what you saw without sound, can you say if the date was successful or not? And we would reflect on these extra-linguistic aspects of the video. We would then proceed to some listening activities. First, we will go through the vocabulary clarification. Now, for the listening comprehension, again, I would try and keep things very simple. I would do 2 listening, 1 listening for just with very simple questions, and 1 listening for detail. And before doing that, I would show to my students how to regulate the video speed, the subtitles, transcriptions, so that they could autonomously manage the speed at which they wanted to watch the video. And after this passage, we would then analyze language with an inductive approach, starting from sorry, some language that was in the video, and reflect on it, and in this case, countable and uncountable nouns, followed by some controlled practice, and then some freer practice. And then at the end of class, we would reflect on what we've learned and sum up all the content covered, and have a reflection on what students have learned and how confident they would feel in a similar situation today rather than they were before having this class, and if they have ever lived something similar, what happened. Maybe they can share their experience, because they realized that sometimes they weren't fully aware of cultural code of a given context. And I found when I started to have this approach to include these kind of activities in my online teaching, I really saw positive outcomes. My students were more engaged. They would participate more because they would have the opportunity of share about their own culture, and they were really extremely interested. And they felt they were learning something useful they could use straight away. And using video, of course, has many benefits, because for a lot of them, they associate this media with entertainment, so it's easily accepted. And it really allows to explore communication on the whole in a very easy way, and to stimulate cultural reflection, which I feel really lucky teaching English in Australia, because we have the opportunity to have students from all over the world and learn so much from one another, which makes our lessons always very rich. And yes, this activity also pedagogically was very good, because I noticed a quicker language acquisition, more reflection on language, And it would also stimulate independent learning, because a lot of them would ask me, oh, where can I keep watching this TV show, or where can I find this movie? And they were interested in doing more and continue learning. And the way the activity is set up will give them a way to really use videos to learn language, because we know that watching a movie or watching a TV show doesn't necessarily mean learning unless we do it using the right strategies in the right way. Okay, if there are any questions.
No, that was great. Thank you so much for that, Julia. And yeah.
Oh, what did I do?
No, all good. Thank you.